Welcome back to the 24 Hours of Le Mans exclusively here on Speedvision from the Circuit de la Sarthe. I'm Rick Benjamin. Eric Daly is alongside. Steve Matchett joins us as well. Dave Burns and Guy Hobbs are on pit road. Just beginning the 4th hour of competition, and we have had hard rain off and on. And gentlemen, it has just been a downpour the last 25 minutes or so.
Which is good because it takes some of the decisions away. Everybody needs to go on wet weather tires, except you see how long the shadows are? The sun has just peeped from behind the grandstands.
The good news is the rain has not lasted long when it has rained. One of the big stories in the early going, the MG team leading the prototype 675 category. Guy Hobbs is in their garage area.
Yeah, the yellow flag came out. Kevin McGarity brought the number 33 MG into the pit. I just said to Hugh Chamberlain, I said, what's the problem? He said, no problem. So what it is it's a precaution. The 34, remember, they had exhaust problems, and they're still in the pit area, in the garage area right now. They figured because it was yellow, they'd bring this car in, look it over, and make any necessary adjustments so they don't have an exhaust problem. So they're just going to put the rear deck lid back on here and send Kevin McGarity back out. And as you pointed out, the sun is now shining and the rain has completely stopped. However, I don't think it's going to last for very long, because behind that sunshine and a few miles further away, I see big, big dark clouds. Meantime, further down the pit lane, Dave Burns has some more.
Yeah, and down here, Guy, believe it or not, it's the same as where you are. I know here at Le Mans, things are different from one end to the other, but pit lane's about the same right now. We've got the sunshine, we've got now just barely sprinkles, so the weather's really changing. I want to refer to something you guys were talking about in the booth just a minute ago with the Bentley. I did speak with Dave Ward, who is the chief engineer on the Bentley that Martin Brundle is driving, and he said to me that they've sort of got their, they haven't had a lot of rain testing, but they think they've got it figured out in the car in terms of the fact that they've got the heated windshield and they can keep the fogging down, they hope. The one thing, you mentioned the windshield wiper. They, of course, do not use it at speed. The shape of the Bentley windshield allows them not to have to use it at speed, but when he's running around slowly behind the safety car, he will be using the wiper. So that's the update on the rain and the Bentley.
Will be something we'll be watching. Now tomorrow, after we conclude our coverage, the movie Le Mans returns to Speedvision. 30 years ago that film was made. 10:30 Eastern Time tomorrow on our Lost Drive-In series. Now, a couple of days ago, Andrew Marriott went stalking pit lane looking for one gentleman who was heavily involved in the filming of that movie. Our own Derek Bell played a key role. Andrew talked to Derek about Le Mans.
Derek, difficult to believe, I know, 30 years since the filming of the great Le Mans film. You were part of that. Do you remember much about it?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, exactly. It was a unique thing for me. I've never been involved on a movie like that. In 1970, we started it. It was also my first year at Le Mans as well with Ferrari, with Ronnie Peterson in the 512. And then, of course, we worked on the movie, you know, from June onwards till about October. And I got to know Steve McQueen very well, and we ended up sharing a house together with our families. And I mean, it was a fabulous experience. I have to say, at the same time, racing Formula 2 and sports car, but still coming back here in the week to earn money.
The thing about Steve, he was very quick as a race car driver. He desperately wanted to do the race.
I mean, Steve would have done the race, and I think he would have been capable. I mean, Joseph and I, quite one particular occasion, we got him locked in between us. I was in the 512, and Joe was in the 917. We had Steve between us in the 917, coming into White House, and I must admit, we were very naive in those days. And we came charging in there with Steve, you know, absolutely on the limit. And he got out. His face was very white. It was as white as his face mask, but, you know, he stayed with us.
His eyes were still blue?
Yeah, his eyes were blue, but the rest was very pale.
One of the great memories, certainly for many of us who grew up enjoying that movie, and you can see it again tomorrow here on Speedvision. Still under full course caution. Safety car is out. The rain's still a factor. The track is wet, Derek. We will talk more about that when we continue from the Circuit de la Sarthe. We are back at Le Mans France, the 24 hours of Le Mans here on Speedvision. I'm Rick Benjamin. Derek Daly is alongside, and we've got a cast and crew of thousands. Martin Birrane joining us in the booth right now as we take a look at the Panoz coming on pit road. The 19th car also down as one of the Panoz stops for tires. This is a look at just how wet the conditions were moments ago. This is the number 10 Dome machine, which is 10th overall. And Derek, how could you manage to drive it?
Well, it's the open top car. You see, it's clear there, then it's bad, then it gets clear again. They keep trying to move out to clear air to blow it away.
So, I mean, a lot of drivers would prefer to be in this open-top car in these conditions, despite the fact that he's soaked.
Teams taking their time, of course, on pit road as we prepare to put this one back under green in just a moment. But the Panoz being pushed away from its pit stall, trying to get it refired. One of the GT Porsches coming out. Now it looks like they're going to back it into its garage stall.
They have just had such a litany of problems with this car. And Steve, when you technically move into new ground like this car has, I mean, it really has become an uphill battle for this Panoz team.
The car's really not working very well here at all, has it? And compared to what they had before, it doesn't seem to be working there as well. But the thing, the left front upright problem, when they've lost both wheels now, is that a coincidence? And the thing that bothers me is, of course, that the left front uprights, as all the other uprights on, have got a mechanism that should stop the wheel nut backing off and stop the wheel coming off. And if that's failed twice, that's an area for concern in its own right.
Of course, the left front gets a lot of loading at a course like this, where most of the turns are right-handed.
Clockwise track would put all the loading onto the left front in comparison to the rest of the corners. You're quite right, really, that takes the most of the weight. But nevertheless, the retention mechanism, even if you start to get a problem with the upright bearings themselves, should be impossible in theory for that wheel nut to back itself off.
Yeah, frustration for Jamie Davies as he sits in the car there. Jamie Davies, of course, so successful in the British Formula 3 Championship, and now wants to make a mark for himself in these big sports cars.
Jamie Davies is still in the car talking to one of the team officials. Dave Burns, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Jamie Davies is talking to his team, and so far none of us around here standing around observing or anything have really been able to tell a thing. And now we've got the other one coming in as well, and they're going to run me back and actually give me a better view than I had of both Panoz coming in. The boys are going to go to work very quickly here, and unfortunately at the same time are coming in, and we've just not had a chance to distill any of the information yet, as now both Panoz unfortunately off course and in the garage area.
Early on, of course, one of the two Panozes was very strong. As Steve Hatchett mentioned, the left front wheel problem with both those cars has been a factor. Now the two cars being shown 32nd and 36th in the running order, and this stop under full course caution certainly doesn't help their cause.
I believe that's Frank Lagorce, the Frenchman, in the other Panoz car.
Well, we have a moment, though. We want to welcome in Martin Birrane, who's the chairman of Lola Cars. Martin, great to have you with us. Your MG creation's doing surprisingly well here.
Yes, it is. Le Mans is a roller coaster ride at the best of times, but this one has been a really special ride for us, because in the space of 7 months we've brought this car from a piece of paper to the track here. This is the longest either of these cars have ever run, because we weren't in time with our engines to get our car tested. The engine's very short of miles, very short of brake time, but the package is good. And as we've seen, we've had it up and down, swinging up and down today, all the way up to 3rd place, down to 15th, back into, what, 15th again, because we're checking everything every time we can.
As we took a look a moment ago, we're back under green all around the racetrack. Guy Smith in the Bentley, number 7. Second now as the restart takes place. 41 laps are on the board here at Le Mans. Watching the Panozes. Martin, if you'll stay with us for a moment, let's check in with Dave Burns downstairs.
Well, believe it or not, this is unreal. 2 left front wheel problems. You remember that. Now both of the Panoz have another second identical problem. It is gear selection. I just spoke with the team. They are unable to get the pneumatic gear selection system to operate correctly. They're going to go to work on both of them, and I'm thinking if they solve the problem for one, they're going to try applying that to the other.
You know what I'm thinking, Steve Matchett? Water. Somewhere in the electrics. Don't they have the paddle shifter on the Panoz cars?
They've got a pneumatic shift system on the car, I believe, but in a way it's not that unsurprising. If you have 2 identical race cars and they're built to exactly the same specification, you have a failing on one and everything is machined exactly the same on one component to the other car, no great surprise that both fell with exactly the same problem. Normal.
Let's take a look at trouble for one of the other machines in the event. This is the Chrysler, the 14, one of the Viper Team Orica cars. Arakondo and Amarim sharing this machine. Off into the gravel. He gets the car back on. As we've discussed, Derek Daly, so many times when you go off like that, it's not just a matter of getting the car on the course. You picked up so much gravel, you almost have to stop and clean the car out.
And now these gravel traps that are supposed to suck the car in and stop it is so wet you can literally drive across the top. But before we say goodbye to Martin Birrane, because I know he's busy, I don't know whether everybody knows, but Martin actually raced here 10 times at Le Mans. But Martin, in England right now, there's a huge push to be back involved at high levels for British motorsports when we see Bentley and MG back.
Yes, it's a coincidence that we're here together, of course. But MG are here for a very specific reason, because it was taken over by a consortium just over a year ago, and it had to do something to lift its image and lift the Rover Group. So the way to do that, and I was, shall we say, foremost in the suggestions of how it might happen, was to go racing and to come to do a Le Mans car, to do a British BSCC car. The rally cars came again. We're also going to do a supercar, a road car, although we haven't got around to that one yet.
And of course, while Martin sits here, he's wants to really find out how his Lola Champ cars got on in Detroit today. That's the next phone call he's going to make.
As we are on board with the number 10 Team Denbla Avis Dome machine, this is Casper Elgaard, and they have that car in 9th, and you can see the track starting to dry a little. You can get up to more speed now, so we'll see if Elgaard is able to bring the Dome up through the pack just a little more. Martin Birrane, thanks for joining us here in the booth. Congratulations on a successful debut so far of your new MG.
Thank you very much indeed.
Good to have you with us. And we will take a time out here from our coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. As we go to break, we show you the top 4 in the running order as we take a look at one of the Bentleys, the 7 car, 3rd behind 2 of the Audis. Back in Le Mans, France, here on Speedvision, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Glad to have you with us tonight as we look ahead. It's evening now in France, but just early in the afternoon back home. And the weather has been the big story so far. We have had rain off and on. It's affected many of the teams, of course, tire changes, and we've seen some impact on the electrics in many of these cars. Both Panoz machines in the garage for the 2nd time today. First, they had left front wheel problems. Now we understand gearbox is the concern. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But earlier, Bob Varsha took a look at the situation with the Panoz, as it's been an up and down year as this team prepared for the 2001 Le Mans.
At the finish of last year's 24 Hours of Le Mans, Panoz cars captured positions 5, 6, 7, and 8 in the LMP 900 class, giving the team plenty of cause for optimism for the future. That future, in the form of the LMP 07 model, was unveiled in Adelaide, Australia just 6 months later at the American Le Mans Series season finale. But the car driven by Jan Magnussen lasted just 2 laps before retiring with alternator problems. And those problems would continue. At the 2001 ALMS season opener in Texas, the team ran 2 new cars, and all seemed to be right. 2/3 of the way through, they actually led the Audis before finally giving way. After that strong 3rd at Texas, the new Panoz had nothing but problems at tough old Sebring. Here, David Brabham was given a fuel shower on his first pit stop, causing him to make a hurried escape from the car. Neither Panoz was able to last the distance due to numerous chassis and engine problems that have persisted through the events right up to this weekend at Le Mans, the race every team wants to win most.
So it has been a difficult period in the development of this new Panoz with their proprietary Zytec 4-liter motor. We see Dave Burns trotting around the nose of both those machines as the work goes on. Dave, what are you hearing from the team down there?
Well, the man in the back of the car on the, I think you're looking at a close-up now. Dave Price is the team manager of this whole Panoz effort. Don Panoz is actually in the background as well, looking over things. But I just spoke with Dave. He said, you know, definitely both of these particular Panoz Roadsters have the paddle shifter, and it's a pneumatic system. And of course, the way that you fire up the pneumatic system is electric. And he suspects that yes, indeed, it is something related in terms of what messed with their system there. So Stefan Chistel is standing on the car right now. He is the car chief. He is putting the pad back in for, I believe it will be Frank Lagorce as well, getting back in. Frank didn't seem to think his stint would be over. Meanwhile, down the Cadillac pit, let's go to Guy Hobbs.
Well, the Cadillac pit where Max Angelelli brought the car in and brought it under power but no right front wheel. The crew took a look at it, put a new right front on, and they started to think about sending him out, and they've changed their mind, and now that new right front's come off, and they're going to have to change an upright on the right front of this Cadillac. Another tough break for the Dams team and the Cadillac that have come back here with a brand new car, brand new alterations to it, but now they've got some work to do to that one. And as I speak, more rain starts to fall, as we said it would at 6:30. It's going to rain from 6:30 to 10:30. Back to you guys.
Oh, Oh, that's lovely. That perfectly jibes with our time on the air here this evening as we take a look at what happened to Max Angelilli a moment ago. There's the right front coming off, bouncing across pit road.
And this car looks only similar to what you saw here last year. It's heavily modified. Chassis pretty much the same as it was. Heavy gearbox changes, suspension changes, aerodynamic changes. But as they say many times earlier in the show, an all-new car being prepared for next year.
Now, Steve, we saw the Panozes with the left front problems. This is a right front. They've had to change it now a couple of times. What do you think could be wrong here?
Fingers.
Could be. I don't believe it can be finger trouble, Derek, because the system that's built into the car, the mechanism is that even if you put the wheel nut on finger tight only and forgot to put the air wrench on, the two little levers that spring out from the upright should stop the nut coming off, even if it's not hammer gun tight. I don't understand. They must be having some problem with the mechanism itself. There's something that we need to look into that, because the whole system, every team in the pit lane, the top car certainly use the exact same sort of system.
So what you're talking about is the safety clip
it's a little
that they
safety
put on
clip
after the nut goes on.
You look in a Formula One pit stop, the guys reach in and with a second motion and click a safety system on. But on these sports cars, it's an automatic system. It's a spring-loaded system that allows a wheel nut to go on when the mechanic puts the wheel on, and then two little spring-loaded plungers come out to stop the wheel nut backing off. That's the system they use. So it's a one-operation system. Should be fail-proof. Should be.
Very strange.
Prototypes down the pit straight to the first couple of corners here at Le Mans. Huge crowd, of course. Some 250,000 fans here at the Circuit de la Sarthe. The overall leader is the #1 Audi. We'll be back. Welcome back to exclusive coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans here on Speedvision. I'm Rick Benjamin, Derek Daly, and Steve Matchett topside. Dave Burns and Guy Hobbs on pit road. It is raining hard once again. Look at what happened to one of the Team Escari machines just a moment ago. This is coming down the Mulsanne straight through the first of the kinks, the 21 car. The Team Escari machine, Zwart and Scott Maxwell, and we believe Zwart, the team owner, was in the car at this point, right around there.
And this is an interesting team because the Escari is such a famous name. They have actually built a two-seat mid-engined car that will go into production for sale in America. So the Escari name, we believe, if all comes to fruition, will end up on the roads of America.
Klaus Zwart listed as the constructor of the Escari machine, but his driving stint here not successful at the moment. And in his defense, certainly the weather conditions have been extreme. It would be very easy to break a car loose, especially one of the full-bore prototypes at this point, as the hard rain falls again here on the front straightaway. Let's take a look at how things stand in the GT category as we are closing in on hour number 4. Gunnar Jeanette leading in his Porsche, the 77, 83, the 74. There's the Callaway machine, Bob Mazzucola, Vic Rice, and Kurt Wagner. They're fourth, and much was expected of that team coming in against a gaggle of Porsches.
A very new development for that Callaway Corvette-based car. I mean, they qualified fastest here. The car still has mufflers on it. Sounds like a road car, and they believe it's still got at least 2 seconds of speed left in that car. But they did a very good job, however, they're chasing as we speak. We saw Babini running second. I think, I might be out on a limb here, but I think Babini was the guy who drove round the lap in the Porsche 911 last year with the door open, head out the window, and the bonnet up. I think it was Babini as we see the rain pour down again.
And we want to remind all of you at home, of course, you can contact us, as you always can, during our Grand Slam racing coverage. The E-Slam Speedline comments, you're seeing them on your screen right now, and we will do our best to get you answers and responses as warranted throughout the coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. You can email us your questions and comments by logging on to www.speedvision.com and follow the links that will get you right to our E-Slam Speedline. And we take a look at one of the GT Porsches working his way around the road course. Let's find out more about the troubles for Team Escari. The yellow flag's waving again in that part of the racetrack. Here's Dave Burns.
Well, and Ian Dawson is signing off now as Klaus Zwart went back out in the car. Klaus, of course, as you mentioned, the owner, and a very passionate owner, according to Ian. And but what they were having a problem with was temperature. The temperature has dropped here with the rain, and they tell me that they needed to get some heat in the motor. So they put a couple of about 2x8 pieces of aluminum on the front grille to block the passageway for the air to build more heat in the motor. And with racer's tape not being any kind of a good sticking device on a very wet Escari on the front end. They went ahead and put the tie wraps on to hold it on. In fact, now they've got another nose that they're getting ready to put on the car, perhaps with a little bit better situation as far as that heating situation goes. So that's a story in the Escari pit. We understand that the safety car is once again back on track.
Full course caution once again. Second time, gentlemen, just in the short time we've been here. It's raining unbelievably hard here on the front straightaway. You get a glimpse of just how hard the rain is falling around the 8 miles of the circuit here on which the 24 Hours of Le Mans is run. It is just pouring, and these teams are going to have to make a decision, Derek Daly, I would think, again on tires.
I think the rain god just made the decision for them. They are going to have to make sure they are on full wets again. I mean, in a torrential downpour like this, you cannot take the risk on them being on anything, Steve, other than full wet boots.
No, this is absolutely, you know, this is monsoon conditions. The idea of putting these cars on intermediate tires is crazy. What the teams have got to be aware of, the drivers particularly, Derek, and you'll be able to comment on this, is the change in the tarmac from the pit lane to where the pit markings are, because it goes from tarmac to concrete. And I've seen a number of cars in the past, you know, when you get the friction level changes, obviously with the rain, it becomes very, very slippy on that. Could easily put a car or a mechanic out when they come in and hit their marks and they start to slip.
Or if you drive over a painted line in these conditions.
Absolutely.
We've seen that many times. Derek, it seems like every time you and I have been together this year, it's been pouring down rain.
Or if you drive over a Cadillac pace car. With the vision of this dome right now, that is unbelievable on the run down to link up behind this pace car. Of course, the Cadillac, is it the STS
it is.
I that's here pacing it, as it was last year. So Cadillac again have a big presence.
This is the number 10 dome that we're on board with Casper Elgaard. He is 8th overall in the prototype category, currently showing in 6th position. So a hard rain is falling at the Circuit de la Sarthe. We'll be back with more here on Speedvision. Hope everybody brought their rain slickers. We're going to need them here tonight. Pouring rain once again at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. I'm Rick Benjamin, Steve Matchett, Derek Daly alongside Guy Hobbs and Dave Burns have the unenviable task of surfing down on pit road right now. Le Mans is certainly a place for memories. This is the 69th running of the 24 Hours, and we sent our intrepid colleagues David Hobbs and my good friend Derek Daly out earlier this weekend to reminisce about some of the changes at Le Mans.
Since 1923, this circuit has gone through 13 different iterations of design. Now, the paddock is also very different. Nowadays, it's full of million-dollar transporters. But in the good old days, not too long ago, some teams didn't even use the paddock to prepare the cars. As in the case of David Hobbs, you came here with Roger Penske, the best team of its day with the Ferrari, and didn't even use the paddock for the car.
No, that's right. In 1971, we had the 512M, which was absolutely the pick of the crop here. And we actually prepared it in the local Shell station. As you can see over the door there, it says Réparation toute marque, which means repair all types of car. Well, 30 years ago, they had the best Ferrari in the world right there in that garage being got ready for the race. And of course, every day, the chief mechanic would drive it to the track and then back again after practice at night. So it was different to what it is now.
And speaking of driving to the track, it is very, very different than those old days.
We're on the run down now from Arnage to the Porsche curves, and today and back in 1968 in the GT40s, right about here, the cars are doing close to 200. Right now they're doing about 200, 205 at this point. In the GT40 we were doing about 198 to 203 down here. But instead of turning right into the Porsche curves, you can see all the rubber on the road here where people are braking and touching the floor. In the old days, you went straight on here, and as you can see, the road dramatically narrows. That guardrail on the left was not there, that grass bank and those trees were there. And as we went round this little corner, we were just about close to 200 in the GT40s, coming down to the most famous corner at Le Mans, Maison Blanche, or White House. And on the run down, you can see the bridge parapet just sticking out those blue and white chevrons. There's a little hump over this bridge, and right over here, the GT40 would get real light. Of course, by now you'd be far on the left-hand side of the road here, setting up for the right-hander into Maison Blanche, which is that house, as you can see, right in front of you on the left. And an incredibly quick right, left, and then a right-hand exit.
And one of the corners that's always been here is the kink, the famous kink. It's at the end of the long Mulsanne straight. Now, I was here with the Silk Cut Jaguar team in 88 and 89. We were doing 248 miles an hour down to this kink, and I couldn't take it flat. Jochen Master then drove for Mercedes set. Here's what you do. Count the marker boards. 3, 2, 1, then lean, and you'll be through. Sure enough, went flat. But as impressive as you think 248 miles an hour is during the day, have a look here. At night time, we reach terminal velocity after the kink in the Jag at night at 250 miles an hour.
Well, we're at the opposite end of the speed spectrum as the dome has stopped evidently on course. It is getting a shove back into a safe area. Derek Daly, I am impressed. 250 miles an hour down Mulsanne.
At night on the way to that famous yump that's now been changed, and you would just move your left foot over and touch the brake pedal. Make sure it was there, warm the discs up, and then stand the thing on its nose when you go down to second gear down at the hairpin. But I mean, it was such a memorable time down that long straight. And then we came back the next 2 years with a Nissan Group C car, and I just hated the dreaded chicanes. They were just terrible. They still are.
Glory days, though, for sports car racing in that era. Well, as we ride on board, I guess you could call it riding, as the car sits on one of the straight stretches of the racetrack, and the safety car is out, of course. Full course caution. Meantime, a lot of work on pit road. Teams wheeling cars in and out of the garage areas to make changes during this driving rainstorm. Second one we've had just in the past hour here at Le Mans. One of the Cadillacs, the 5 car, is down and away. The overall leaders continue to be the 2 Audis. 46 laps complete at Le Mans. Welcome back at the 24 Hours of Le Mans here on Speedvision. I'm Rick Benjamin. Derek Daly is alongside. Steve Matchett topside as well. Dave Burns and Guy Hobbs on pit road. We show you our Porsche race reset. Working hour number 4 of the 24 Hours. The overall leader, the number 1 Audi. Tom Christensen driving right now. Frank Biela has been in that car. Emmanuel Pirot as well. And the major story, lately at least, has been the hard rain. It has eased slightly, but gentlemen, we've got heavy cloud cover all over this race course right now. And we're under full course caution for the second time. One of the other significant developments, I think, is just how good the Bentley has been in the first 3.5 hours.
It really has been good, and we believe that Guy Smith is still out on the intermediate tires. Now, something that is so they also have to contend with, it stops and starts so rapidly. It went from dry to torrential, and suddenly it got to good intermediate weather again before the next rainfall. Look at here, I mean, this is good intermediate weather. We saw the dome stop earlier on. In fact, they did get it going fairly quickly. But the actual changing of conditions, even when it's wet, is quite remarkable.
As we watch the field behind the safety car coming down Mulsanne, the Bentleys are 3rd right now and 6th, and they're the only 2 competitors in the prototype GTP category. So they're running 1-2 there, but 3rd and 6th overall, which is an excellent showing in the early going. We watched the ongoing troubles for one of the Escaris with the Judd motor. Talking to Steve Matchett earlier about the Judd engine, there was some talk about the Judd had never run a long event like this. It's noted to be a pretty durable motor when it runs in Grand Am road racing competition in the States. It's a Formula One motor, but you only run 2 or 3 hours generally in those circumstances.
Absolutely, you do, and this is a completely different form of racing. You know, Formula One racing, for all intents and purposes, is 3 sprints or 2 sprints depending on fuel stops. It's a completely different strategy, so they're going to have to change the characteristics of that engine and drop the horsepower capabilities of that thing down to give it more reliability. But those engines were never originally designed to run for 24 hours, that's for sure. 24 hours, as far as Formula One is concerned, is a season's worth of racing.
As we take a look at the 10, the dome car coming in on pit road, they'll fuel that machine.
That was Ben Collins that we just saw still in the Escari, so he's going to stay in that car. This thing wasn't out of fuel, was it? You don't think, Steve, that was why he stopped out there on the racetrack and switched to a reserve fuel pump?
So
I don't know, but he got it going fairly quickly.
It sounded as though it was running, though, when they were backing him up. I thought I could hear the engine unlit at that time. And I suspected they might have had a gearbox problem.
When you have that much rain, and you think, you know what, it was more than fuel, they're going to back him in to the garage, as Steve Burns accurately called it.
As you see one of the crew members reaching over the steering wheel, Casper Elgaard is there. We've got some email that we've received, of course, from Speedvision.com, and thought I'd get your impressions of this, Derek Daly, with your 4 starts here. Folks want to know about drivers and their particular ability to adapt here driving at night. Is there such a thing as a good nighttime driver?
Well, the regulations say they will not allow you to even start the race if you do not complete a minimum of 3 laps at night. Now, believe me, 3 laps at 250 miles an hour is precious practice to jump into here. But believe it or not, the lights are so good on these cars that you have lights that go forward, then you also have lights that go out right and left to help you see the curbs. In the old days, there were no street lights of note around the corner, so it was incredibly dark. Nowadays, they actually put large spotlights on gantries at the critical corners so you can actually see fairly well. I mean, I say fairly well. At all times, there is things that pop up that you don't know are there. If something drops off a car, you can't see it till it's too late. But you can see just about enough. And then nighttime is all about confidence in the car and the rhythm that you get of hitting the same mark, the same time, the same curve, the same apex. And what the teams like to do is they like to send a driver from the daylight into the night.
So you get that transition time.
So you can get the transition time. If possible, that would be their desire.
Letting your eyes adjust and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
David Hobbs at breakfast this morning, you were there with us talking too about how when it's sunny here, there is a huge transition late in the day. Now, for folks who've never been to France, I was amazed this week to discover it's daylight here at 10 o'clock at night.
And it's daylight again at 6 o'clock in the morning.
About 5 o'clock in the morning.
Is it? Is it? Yeah.
Well, that's one of the benefits of living in France that I adore. But of course, come the winter time, it's completely the opposite. Freezing cold at about 3 hours of daylight.
Watching many of these teams navigate under caution, full course caution, as hard rain continues to fall here at Le Mans. Car number 1, the Audi, still out in front. Tom Christensen is driving. There's the number 10 Dome into the garage as they take a look behind the driver, perhaps with some electrical woes that need to be solved on that machine. We'll let you know when we return here at Le Mans. We are back at the Circuit de la Sarthe, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, exclusively here on Speedvision. I'm Rick Benjamin, Derek Daly and Steve Matchett are alongside. Guy Hobbs and Dave Burns are on pit road for us as the rain continues. Teams still making changes. One of the MGs is on pit road. Guy Hobbs.
Yeah, Kevin McGarity brings the number 33 MG back in again. Now, don't forget, they made us adjustments to the exhaust under the last yellow to take advantage of that. This time, not making any adjustments, just adding fuel right now. They're not going to change tires, obviously, because conditions still require those wets. So I'm just not quite sure why they didn't add this fuel when they went out last time. So they must have some other kind of problem, although he's already refired it, wiped off the visor. Looks like they are making some kind of adjustment. I'll try and check out exactly what it is. Oh, now we're starting to see steam. That's not a good sign. And getting a word from the team. Now Kevin McGarity looking around, looking somewhat confused, actually, at this point. Nobody's fired it up. And as Steve mentioned, the transfer from the concrete to the tarmac is slick. And being very careful to get out there without too much wheel spin. Back up to you guys.
McGarity shown 13th overall. Meantime, we climb on board with one of the Vipers. This is the 55 car. Carl Rosenblatt steering this machine right now, but Vanina Ickx is also driving this car. She's one of the 3 drivers in the GTS Viper, and Vanina is a familiar face to all of us at Speedvision because she's a regular competitor, Derek, in the U.S. Formula 2000 Championship Series.
And she is very proficient behind the wheel of a single-seater Formula 4. Look at this here.
This was at Homestead earlier this year, an event we did many weeks ago, a couple of months actually, and she tagged that machine that was directly in front of her, pranged the nose of that car pretty thoroughly, but did bring it on pit road. They repaired, and she did a nice job that weekend.
Same helmet color scheme as her dad, of course, always used. Look at this here, onboard camera. We watched this also live when she did this.
Great outside-in move. Vanina Ickx, very strong, very good in the wet weather, so this event may be something that is suitable to her talents here at Le Mans this weekend.
Did you see that tank slapper she took care of there in the braking zone?
Yeah.
I will also tell you, she completed a wet weather test at Mid-Ohio just a week ago. An official test, everybody was there in the wet. She was the fastest driver of the whole day.
She's been very impressive in this first year that we have watched her in U.S. Formula 4 2000. Back on board with the 55, Jackie Ickx, her dad, the race director here this week. 6 victories. He's the all-time leader at the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Look at Derek Bell. Just look at the history that Derek Bell has amassed here, and of course that has made him so wanted, and for people like Bentley, because I mean his experience here is so much to share that with that team and with their customer base. It's just incredible.
Derek acting as a consultant for Bentley this weekend, and he'll join us on the air in a few hours as well this weekend here at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. We watch one of the MGs down the Mulsanne straightaway, and the safety crew is working. The safety car is still out. We thought perhaps the green was going to reappear, but the yellow flag continues to wave as some of the field comes toward pit road. Safety car remains at the head of this pack. One car thinking about diving on pit road decides to stay out. Guy Hobbs on pit road for us. You have an update on the MG situation?
Well, on the MG itself, there was no problem. They just decided to bring it in under yellow behind the caution flag so they can go a full stint now. Not quite sure why they didn't do it the last time they were in. And while that was going on, the Yokohama guy was out here and he took a temperature of the pit lane. Derek, you remember from last year, the temperature on pit lane at this time of day was, well, you can simply say boiling. Right now, it's a cool 14 degrees centigrade.
And as we saw earlier on, when I believe it was the Cadillac that came in to put blanking plates in front of the radiator, because at this low speed, at this low temperature, just keeping the engines warm enough to run properly is a problem, in addition to the fact that you have so little grip on the racetrack. Look at the streams of water run out of the bottom of those Audis.
Under the Dunlop Bridge, and the green flag appearing at least at that part of the course now. So we're back to racing. The number 1, Tom Christensen, driving the Audi out in front. He is leading overall. Their team car, the number 2, Capello at the throttle right now in second place. And they're being shown 1 lap behind. That's Christensen out in front, leading overall here at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Wiggles out of the corner.
What a test of discipline and of driver skill this is. Discipline not to overstep the bounds just too much, because remember, there is probably $100 million has been spent on this team to get those cars to win the Le Mans 24-hour race, and you could throw the thing into the boondocks by just putting too much power on in the wet.
Now, I know you all want to know how the Corvettes are doing. Scott Pruitt about to take his first laps in competition here at Le Mans. Guy Hobbs.
Yeah, Johnny O'Connell has just stepped out of the 63 and handed over to Scott Pruitt, his first time ever here at Le Mans, and this will be his first stint. And we'll check with Johnny and see exactly what the conditions are like. How do you feel about sending Scott out there in these lovely Le Mans conditions, Johnny?
Oh, this is amazing. I tell you, you got to tip your hat to all the officials here for putting it under caution, because I mean, it's just flooding out there, really dangerous, especially on Mulsanne. There's 1 or 2 really bad areas, you know, and doing it, giving Scott a little time under the caution here makes sense. So he can see where the puddles are. You know, he's very good, very experienced. I don't think he's going to have a problem with it, but it is really dicey conditions.
Has he had many laps in the car in the 2 days of qualifying and practice?
Well, you know, he got a fair amount in pre-qualifying, and so that was kind of nice for him. And then, you know, we both got a fair amount, you know, the past couple of days, but, you know, you know, our setup isn't as good today as it was on Thursday. Somehow that always happens at this place, but, you know, hopefully the track will come to us if it ever dries out.
Well, supposedly the weather forecast is this rain is just pretty much going to continue off and on throughout the night. What's that going to do to any strategy? And I mean, as far as racing lines, just staying out of trouble.
Well, you know, that's really what you got to do. You know, you don't push too hard. Let people, you know, the people that are going to push hard are going to make mistakes and fall off. So, you know, we had real good success winning at Daytona because we were smart and stayed out of trouble. So hopefully the game plan will be to do the same thing here.
All right, that's Johnny O'Connell, who loves it here in France. He's thinking about buying a house here, and of course, coming off the win with the Corvette at Daytona in 24 hours.
Well, Johnny O certainly doing his job, handing the car off to Scott Pruitt with the Corvette leading in GTS. The team machine, the 64, second in GTS. They're 14th and 15th overall. As we continue with the safety car on the course, Tom Christensen, your overall leader. Capello right behind him in the other Audi. Back at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, Rick Benjamin, Steve Matchett, Derek Daly for you here on Speedvision, working hour number 4, about to wrap up the 4th hour as one of the Peugeots comes on to pit road. Meantime, we were watching the Audi a moment ago, Steve Matchett, and there's been some talk that Audi may be having a problem electronically with its tire pressure sensors and its gearbox mapping. What would that be?
Well, we know that Audi started using little pressure sensors on their wheel rims so they can monitor the tire pressures on each corner of the car. And how these work is there's a little transponder, a little transmitter mounted inside the rim, which sends a signal, a little radio signal to the onboard electronics on the car, and from there the telemetry system back to the pits so the engineers can keep track of pressures on the car. However, if they've not done an awful lot of testing with that, you can find that the signal, I think what Audi are finding is the signal from the transponders on the rims is affecting the software for the controller for the gearbox, sending wrong signals to the electronics on the car. The signals are getting confused, and that's probably making false decisions for the gearbox controller, snatching previous gears, or that sort of thing. So all sorts of problems can happen if they've not done enough testing with that.
As we ride with Guy Smith in the Bentley, the 7 car running 3rd overall, leading GTP. The green flag has reappeared. The safety car is in, so we're back racing, although the track is very wet. We're hearing that perhaps the champion Lola, or rather the champion Audi team, has had to change gearboxes completely because of the situation. Maybe some of the other teams are going to unhook those sensors and stop running.
And the reason they wanted to try and keep the sensors on is because we have had a problem with punctures here. Yeah. And the tires now, the profile of the tires are so low that these tires are so stiff with sidewalls, they can actually run for quite a period in a flat condition, but as soon as you load them in the corner, then you get yourself into trouble. Martin Brundle in the Bentley had a puncture and crashed the car at Indianapolis. I believe it was on Thursday night with a puncture. Guy Smith then crashed the same car with a puncture on Friday night. So punctures have become a great bone of contention, which is why they don't want to throw away the sensors. But in fact, they will, Steve, if the gearbox is the downfall.
I don't know actually how easy that's going to be for Audi to take that software off the cars now. The easiest thing that they can do is to take the sensors, the transponders off the rims, but that's going to be a nightmare for the team because all of a sudden they're going to have to start dismantling the tires, pull the tires off the car, potentially to get, off the rims in the back of the garage to get those sensors off.
And how many tires would you have mounted at this point? Probably a couple of dozen.
It's going to be quite a few back there.
Well, let's see, slicks, intermediates, wets, 2 or 3 spares of each.
Several of each, certainly, as we watch the Bentleys coming toward pit road. The 8 car, we understand, which is running in 6th position right now. Eric Van der Poel about to come in, and Butch Leitzinger will be taking over that car. Here's the 7 running 3rd. Let's try to get some more insight on some of the technical challenges as we work into the 4th hour of competition here at Le Mans. Dave Burns is on pit road with the Bentley team's technical director, Dave.
And that is Brian Gush. I'm having some technical problems with my my rain outfit and my headgear here, Brian. Tell us a little bit about these conditions here now. You know, the car is so brand new, and I've heard from you and from Martin Brundle, you had very little testing in the rain. What are you discovering now that the cars have been out there at speed in the wet?
Yeah, we had very little testing. We only had about 20 days track time testing this car anyway, and most of that was in the dry. Although we prepared as well as we could for these conditions, you always find out something new when you hit the conditions. We've got the heated screens to ensure that the screens demist. Visibility is paramount in these conditions. You've got so much spray, you don't need any mist inside the cockpit. So that's one of the critical areas. And then also areas that are cooling ducts, feeding components that need cooling. They don't need cooling in this weather, but we don't want solid streams of water being ducted onto them. So we're masking up those areas that are critical to the function. And that
give us an example, Brian, of what components you cool. And
well, for instance, if we had a cooling duct pointing directly at an alternator, we wouldn't want a solid stream of water going at the alternator, so that would typically be masked up now if it was getting a lot of water in. These are really extreme conditions. The cars are plowing through a lot of standing water, and under normal wet conditions it wouldn't be a problem, but we're getting solid sheets of water hitting the car, and could cause some problems.
All right, very good, Brian. Thank you very much. Brian has been with the project since its inception. And by the way, for those of you in the States who don't know what the screens are, that's the windshield, and the drivers cannot reach it to wipe it off in any way. So if the heated screens are not working, in fact, the number 8 is in now, and it's going to get very busy down here. The guys have just gone down and brought him in. In fact, one of the crew members grabbed some tape off of the wall to go ahead and cover up those cooling systems that Brian just spoke of. Butch Leitzinger is now putting his helmet on, so this was perhaps just a lap or so early, and right right now, Eric Vanderpool is in the car. He will be stepping out, and Butch will be getting in. I did talk to Butch, and I said, when the race has started the way it has here, Butch, are you any less excited to get into the car and enter the race? And he said, no, in no way. It's not less excited, but his first couple of laps are very careful, very challenging, because he's looking for all the puddles that Eric has been in there, going through, understanding where they are on this 8+ mile course. And for Butch, that's the kind of information that he cannot get in this short of a time when he steps into the car. So for Butch, it'll be a little bit of a challenge as he gets into it, but no less exciting for sure. And now they're going to go ahead and get ready to make that driver change. Or will they? And it doesn't look like Butch will at this point. And so we keep Eric Vanderpool in the car. Butch was at the ready. And Rick, for now, we'll go back to you.
Butch Leitzinger, of course, one of the regulars on Rob Dyson's prototype team in Grand American Sports Car Competition with his trademark black helmet and the white stripes. He will not climb in, at least for the moment. Closing in on the 4-hour mark in Le Mans, the #1 Audi still leading. Back in Le Mans, Rick Benjamin with Derek Daly, Steve Matchett with you. Second stint of the day for our Speedvision broadcast crew. Dave Burns and Guy Hobbs are on pit road. As you can see, the wet conditions prevail. It started to rain very strongly once again here on the front straightaway, the pit straightaway. I want to update you on how the American teams are doing in this event. Butch Leitzinger was to have gotten into the Bentley, the 8th car. That car is 7th overall, but Eric Vanderpool has stayed in for now. Kelly Collins at GTS currently wheeling one of the 2 Corvettes in the